helping people realize that there's face mortality, but in facing mortality, we're able to find that there's so much life that we have. Like, when we're able to look at our own death that's coming, because we're all going to die, and say, oh, but I still have life and I can still do this. And there's far more strength in being the weak person, right. The person falling apart and the person crying. Like, people need to see that. I think all of that is just about people being seen and heard. And that's been the most impactful thing that's come out of this for me.
Welcome to the Life with Grief podcast. I'm your host, grief and soul purpose coach and fellow griever, Tara Accardo. Darnell, welcome to the Life with Grief podcast. I am so thrilled to have you here. I truly have been looking forward to this conversation. You are just someone that I am just dying to get to know better, and especially with the work that you do, it's beautiful, it's unique, I want to hear all the things. So
I'm excited. Yeah.
I'm
excited to as soon as you send me the invite, I'm like, yes, here we go. Let's do it. So I'm very excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Yeah, we're gonna dig into all the juicy stuff today. Mm-hmm. What I love to do is have guests just start off by telling listeners a little just about yourself for anyone who doesn't know you or your story. Mm-hmm. And this could be whatever, where you're from, what you like to do in your spare time, fun facts, all that.
Right on. I'm from Charlottesville, Virginia. Lived all around the world at this point in a lot of states. But I love. I'm all about food, right? So anytime someone's like, what's a fun fact? It's always food related, because I love food. I'm always like, does food know how good food is? And so I'm learning like a ton of recipes. Me and a friend now, we're putting together like a recipe box of just things that we've loved since childhood. That's the biggest part of me. Like, if there's anything anyone needs to know about me, is that I love food. But I travel a lot. I love traveling the world. I love connecting with people. And so meeting strangers, putting groups together where I can just be with people to talk and just connect and be silly or talk about whatever, wherever it is. And that's me. And right now I'm normally between Georgia and Michigan. And just out here having fun and doing whatever feels good.
I love that. What a great, simple but complex way to live at the same time.
It's not bad.
I love that so much. Yeah. Also, we might need to chat offline, because I am here for this foodie and travel thing. And I don't know if I've mentioned this, or I know I've mentioned it here and there on the podcast, but for anyone here listening who didn't know, and I don't know that you know this, I actually host another podcast called the Taste Toast Travel Podcast with my husband.
I don't know that.
Oh. Because we also love food, drink, and travel. So we might need to chat about that offline.
I'm here for it.
might need to have you on that one too, because we're all about it. So I appreciate that a lot. Yeah. All right. So let's dig into the work that you do, and I think I would love to start with your work as a death doula. I think it's becoming more of a known thing. I think birth doulas are more, I want to say common, more known. Let's just put it that way. And I think there's a lot of perhaps curiosity around what a death doula does and all of that. Yeah. But I would just love to hear your journey with it, because what I at least have read of you and have known of you, and I think this is for a lot of us who work in this griefy space that we find ourselves in, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for something that we have been through ourselves relating to, grief and death and all of that. So can you just walk us through that journey a little bit?
Yeah. For me, it's kind of this thing where when I look back, it's all about all these dots that happen, and it should have hit me sooner that, this is where this is leading, but I had no idea. I didn't have any language for what this thing is. I never heard of a death doula, but I'd say it started when I was a kid. I was 9, and just watching my grandmother do all of these things for family and for friends, and kind of me just being with her all the time, and being her grandkid, and it just rubbed off on me, and I took care of family, took care of friends. And then grew up, and one day someone says, I'm telling her about all these experiences, and she says, it sounds like you're a death doula. and I never knew what that was. And I look it up, and I'm like, oh, this is what I've been doing my whole life. Maybe I should lean into it. And even at the time, it was like, okay, yeah, this. I'll just keep doing what I've been doing. But then it was like, now that I'm leaning into it, it's like, what do I want to do? And it's funny. I had a
Right.
conversation last week where someone asked, what is a death doula?
Yeah.
And usually I'd give like a very simple answer, but I think there's so many of us who do so many different things that it's
Mhm.
kind of hard to say. So I just now say, I'm like, well, what I do is, and so what I've incorporated into what I do is, because I'm a writer.
Yeah.
I've been a writer since I was 7. That's what I do for a living. Um, I help people tell their stories in
Mhm.
the end, because a big part of it is, what do we want to leave behind? It's the legacy work.
Yeah.
What do I have to say? And I think that's important. So a big part of what I do, um, including helping people die with dignity and, with love and getting closure, and, advocating for them in the medical system, is also being helping them tell the stories that they want to leave behind and tell
Mhm.
who they were, and giving them the control over that if they're able. Everyone's
Right.
not able, but if they're able, I'm able to do that. But yeah, it started when I was 9. When I was 13, I was I volunteered at a hospice. Me and my grandmother took care of a cousin who came home to die, and even in and and also at 13, I lost my first friend who, um, well, was the first friend that I lost, and no one was equipped to help kids deal with grief at the time,
Oh, yeah.
and so it was kind of like, well, what do we do? And I'm, on the playground, like getting friends together, like, well, maybe we should talk about her, and maybe we should
Oh,
do this. And and even at the time, it was like none of these were all one-off things, like nothing connected. And so now
right.
looking back, it was like, oh, I was always hitting in this direction,
That's wild.
and now that I'm here, it's like, oh, well, of course that's what, of course that's what I
You're like,
became.
"Well, that's on
Uh,
brand."
yeah, and then and even helping people realize that there's, one, face mortality, but
Yeah.
in facing mortality, we're able to, find that there's so much life that we have. Like,
Yeah.
when we're able to look at our own death that's coming, because we're all going to die, and
Yeah.
say, oh, but I still have life and I can still do this. And when I was 22, I was diagnosed with a, blood clotting condition that, when I was diagnosed, I had three clots in my lungs. I had 16 clots going from my ankle up my, like, through
Oh
my
my
body.
god.
And the doctor was like, everyone like everyone in there was like, I think you should have died a month ago. And I'm like, well, I'm still here. And now, I go get checked every year, but it's this thing where they're like, at any moment,
Oh
this
my
thing could kill you.
god.
And I'm like, well, still here. So let's,
Joke's
so
on you.
it just, ha ha. And it's
Oh
so funny
my
because I go
god.
to I go to see my hematologist once a year. And it's so funny because when I go in, she's like, so did you jump off any cliffs this year? Or have you done anything? And she's given, like, she hasn't given up, but she knows that I'm going to live my life.
Yeah, yeah.
um, and I'm like, yeah, it's never been a scary thing for me. It's like, oh, well, I've always known we were going to die. I always knew I was going to die. And I've always lived this life that I wanted to live. So if it happens right now, if I drop dead right now, I've done what I could do, the best I could do.
Oh my god. That's where do I start unpacking this? Honestly. Oh my god. I mean, short of saying I feel like you were born to do this because
Mhm.
first of all, what incredible work, but like, so here's where I guess I kind of want to start, and I'd love to get your perspective on this sort of is like, you know, so many people, and understandably so, fear death.
Mhm.
There's something about you that tells me like you have to kind of just never feared it, or maybe you have a different relationship with that fear. Like,
Yeah.
how would you describe that? Like, what's your relationship with that been?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't think I'd never had a fear of it. And I think a lot of it came from just, again, watching my grandmother. I remember
Yeah.
as a kid, it just seemed like death happened in a certain order. It was like, your grandparents and their friends all died, then your parents, and then you.
Right.
And so as a kid, I was like, well, I have a lot of time. But watching
Yeah.
my grandmother, like a friend would die and she'd be at the hospital, she'd be at their house,
Mhm.
and she was always open to talking about it. And so
That's
it was
beautiful.
never something I couldn't talk about, at least with her,
Yeah.
even when other family members didn't want to talk about it. And some still are like, my grandmother, she's dead now, but there are some who are like, no, I don't even go to
I'm good.
hospitals, like those
Yeah.
folks. But it was her, just being able to talk to her about it, and I think a lot of fear for a lot of people comes from just so many unanswered questions,
Oh,
or
yeah.
and even just the life that they've lived. I have a lot of people that I talk to who are so afraid of death, and then we'll have a conversation, and it comes down. Their fear comes from them feeling like they haven't lived the life that they wanted to live yet. And so
Mhm.
it's like, well, I haven't done what I wanted to do. So if I die now, it would be so bad. And I'm like, oh, but I've always lived this life that I've wanted to live, so the fear,
Yeah.
so I don't know where the fear would even come from. Like, it would be inconvenient if I died right now. You know, it would
You're
be
like,
terribly
"That's not
inconvenient.
exactly where I
Right. Like,
signed up for. I wanted
yeah,
a little more time,"
yeah, I
but
got some
like,
curtains I want
okay.
to hang up. I got some recipes I haven't tried yet, but I don't want it to
Love it.
happen at this moment. But if
Right.
it
Yeah, let's knock
did,
on wood.
it's like, it's fine. Like, okay. All right, well, I did it,
How empowering.
yeah, and so the fear never really hit me. Even when the doctor said, oh, well, you have this thing now that the clot could break loose and go to your brain, your heart, your lungs, and you could die on the
Oh
spot.
my
And it was like,
god.
well, okay, but I'm still here. So that's fine. And literally, I remember my mom was sitting in the room, and not that time. This was years later when I had another clot went to my lungs, and I had a couple of my legs, and I was traveling through Guatemala and had to come home and go and get checked out. And my mom was in the room, and I had a flight to Japan maybe 3 days later. And I was like, but I have to go to Japan. And the doctor was like,
She's like,
I don't know
"Oh,
if you should fly. And if my mom wasn't in the room, I would have gone on that trip. But
yeah,
my mom was like,
I don't doubt
you
it."
are not going to Japan.
Mom
And
had
I
it
was
in her.
like, oh, I should have told you to stay home. you know, I was like, well, if I die on the plane, it's fine. At least
Then
I
it's my
tried
time.
to make it. I tried to make it.
Oh my god. I
Yeah,
mean, no, seriously though, like, all jokes aside, what an empowering mindset though, because and I think if anyone here listening takes nothing away from this conversation today, it's really to live on your own terms and
absolutely.
do things that make you happy and be kind of unapologetic about it. But also, what you have just laid out, I think, is also so important too, and that is living in the present. And
Hmm.
I talk about that a lot here. I will keep screaming it from the rooftops as long as anyone is around to hear me. It's so common, I think, even if we haven't been around or experiencing a lot of grief and loss, like we're really stuck in the past over things that we wish we had done. I would imagine you see this a lot as a death
Hmm.
doula, and I'd love
Yep.
to kind of dig into that more in just a second. But you know, living in the past of like the coulda, woulda, shouldas. I
Hmm.
wish I had fill in the blank, or worried about the future, or perhaps even worried about the pain of death, or what they're gonna feel or not feel or whatever. And and then but then we're here living, and that's really all we have right here
Hmm.
is
Absolutely.
even when you're on your deathbed, right? You're not dead yet. And yeah, okay, maybe you're confined to this bed or whatever it is, but like
Uh-huh.
that's where we are right here, right now. So can you talk to me just like a little bit about that? And you don't have to go into any particular details with like certain patients or anything necessarily. Patients, I don't know what you call them technically, but these
Yeah.
beautiful souls that
Yeah.
you are helping.
Clients. Yeah.
Yes. Um, do you see that a lot? I mean, you kind of just alluded to it in terms of people sort of wishing they had done more things like that. Like,
Yeah.
what do you say in those situations? Like,
Yeah, it's tough because there are some. I had a friend recently who kind of became a client. So we've been friends for, gosh, about 17 years. Oh
Wow.
gosh, it's a long time. But you know, he had cancer. He was on his deathbed, literally, and
Yeah.
I flew in, and I'm talking to him, and he says, and I ask him, I'm one of the people who come and I ask the hard questions. You know, a lot of times family, they want to avoid the hard questions. It's like,
Yeah.
this is the end. Let's make it, you know, flowers and roses and you know and
Yeah.
whatnot. But it's I come in and I'm like, so listen, how do you want to die? How do you want this to happen? Do you have any regrets? And I, you know, and I talked to him. I was like, you know, is there anything that you need to say, or how do you feel? He's like, you know, I lived my
Mm.
life wanting to do all these things for my grandmother. He's like, I loved my grandmother. She was my favorite person, and I wanted her to have this big house and
Oh my
on a
gosh.
hill and all these things. He's like, and I worked so hard for it, but when she got to the end, you know, and I was talking to her about it, and I told her I was sorry that I didn't get that for her. She was like, I didn't want you to get that for me. I wanted you to live your life. And he was like, and now I'm dying and realize that I didn't get to live
Oh,
the life that I
God.
wanted to fully. And it
Yeah.
and you know, and I mean, at this moment, he was maybe a week away, not even a full week. He died within that week, but and it was like, what do you do? You know, in that and it's just saying, you know, it's okay. You lived a life. You know, you
Yeah.
still touched so many people. There's still people who are happy because of you. There's still people who, because of you, will go on and do those things because you
Yeah.
existed. You know, and
Yeah.
but and sometimes there is time to do those things for some of the clients that I have. You know,
Mhm.
where it's I want to reconnect with my family. You know, we haven't been in touch in decades, and I'd like to reconnect with them before they die. And there is time to do that in a lot of cases. There's time
Mhm.
for forgiveness, uh, for forgiving yourself, or even just like I've always wanted to write my story. And so I come in and I'm like, well, let's write your story. You speak it out, type it out, and we'll make this thing happen. And so, you know, in the times when we can't do it, when it's just not possible,
Mhm.
it's just, you know, letting them know it's okay. A lot of times, and just finding other ways to maybe find joy in the end, and you know,
Yeah.
before they go. Yeah, but
That's
it's
tough.
hard. It's hard.
That's
It's hard.
heavy. That is
Yeah,
so heavy.
yeah, yeah.
I want to circle back to that in terms of how you cope with that. But you mentioned
Hmm.
something in terms of well, you mentioned this a couple of times. So you've been writing for a very long time since you were 7.
Hmm. Yeah.
And also on top of that, another aspect of your incredible career is that you are an Emmy nominated children's television
Yeah.
writer.
Yeah.
Want to make sure I got all that right. You have been on some very noteworthy shows. Honestly, the one that got me was Blue's Clues
Yeah,
because I was like,
that's always my way in with, especially with parents. It's like,
yeah, yeah.
you know, Blue's Clues. They're like, yes.
I was like, oh, my childhood.
Yeah.
But also some other amazing shows. And I want to hear about how you've gotten into that. But
Hmm.
let's maybe start first because I want to touch on the legacy writing and the fact that you it sounds like you help people literally write out their legacies and all of these
Hmm.
things that they have on their mind. That's amazing. But can you just talk to me? We're going to back up a little bit to your childhood again. How did you kind of get into writing? How did it become a real like staple in your life in this way?
Yeah. I mean, I got into writing just watching TV as a kid
Mhm.
and being inspired by some of the shows I was watching. I was like, you know, I want to be able to create these things. I want people to act out my words.
Mm,
And I
mhm.
love that. And so my intro into writing was writing like short stories and small plays at like age 7, 8,
I was
9.
gonna say,
And
how old were you?
I
Oh
was
my
like,
god.
I was 7. I remember my first story I wrote at 7 years
That's
old.
so cool.
And you know, it was, and my parents were crying reading it because they thought it was based on it. They thought it was true. They thought it like it. They thought it was a runaway note because it was about this little boy who ran away from home, and he jumped
Yeah.
on the train and just went far. And I came home and they're sitting there reading it and crying, and I'm like, "What's going on?" And they just grab me like, "We thought you ran away," and I'm thinking, "Damn, I must be that good," you know. Uh,
Got
and so
that
I was like,
early
I got to
reassurance.
lean into that if that's,
Yeah.
you know. And so leaned into it, had and really just had amazing support of teachers and family, friends throughout throughout it all. And then got into poetry along the way, and got into uh, more like TV and film eventually,
Mhm.
and just saw the power in that, like the power in being able to tell your own story or other people's stories.
Yeah.
Um, as a TV, like I love TV. I love there's some great shows out there. I love books. I love reading memoirs of people who I don't know anything about, never heard the name before. I'll just pick it up and because I think we all have a story to tell. And so I
Yeah.
read it and I'm like, huh, I knew nothing about this person, but we are connected through this thing. Like we're all connected through something, right?
Absolutely.
And so I really fell in love with it. And then as I leaned into being a death doula, it was kind of um, it just made sense. It was like, well, what? Why wouldn't I help people
It sounds such like a
write it out?
natural
Yeah,
fit with all
it
of it.
was.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was so natural, and I teach storytelling, like not teach, but I facilitate storytelling workshops
Very
at a
cool.
place in California called Esalen. And while I was there, the first time I was out there, I was there as an artist in residence, and I was working on um, creating an obituary project because I hate bad obituaries. I hate I hate them so
Yeah.
much. And I was just hitting people up saying, hey, if someone in your family or a friend died and their obituary only says, you know, Darnell lived, he died, he had a dog, funerals on this date, you're not happy with it, send it to me. I want to rewrite their obituary. And
Oh,
then kind of, and while I'm doing these workshops, I'm like, huh, yeah, let's let me help you tell your life story.
yeah.
And so it all kind of just blended in there together, and people started telling these stories about themselves, and they're like, oh my gosh, I hadn't thought about this in decades or since I was 10. And you
Yeah.
just see them light up, and it's like, huh, yes. And now you're in charge of how your story gets told. And I was like, of course, this is what I want to do, just help people tell their story at the end of their life.
Yeah.
And even long before that, and you know, those who are seemingly far, far away from death,
Mhm.
it's like, what story do you have to tell now? Um,
Right.
and then, of course, that'll change next week. It'll change in 50 years when you actually die, you know. But
Mhm.
yeah, it all just blended in there and made sense.
Yeah. And if again, from such a young age, and I just want to touch on the fact that it sounds like, you've had such an incredible community and such supportive family and friends that have really, I mean, I wanted to ask you earlier too, do you feel like you would have maybe embraced the death doula work that you do as much as you have without your grandmother or her influence? Like,
No,
she
I
sounds
think
really pivotal in all of this.
no, she's the like you know, I'm working on this book and I had to figure out who to dedicate it to,
Yeah.
and I didn't dedicate it to her because she's all through the book, you
Uh-huh.
know. But I was like, if it wasn't for her, if she had
Yeah.
not been there, like when my cousin who came home to die, and I wrote about it
Mhm.
a few times. His name was Maine, and he came home to die in the early '90s from age-related complications. And this
Mhm.
is when families were very ignorant to the disease and didn't know. No one cared to read enough about it to find out how it was spread. So
Yeah.
everyone was just like, "Well, you can't come here. You can't come here." And my grandmother was like, "Well, you come to my house. I'll take care of you." And so it
Oh,
was literally me and my grandmother, you know, just talking to him and sitting with him and cooking and eating and just
mhm.
laughing and um, you know, and so watching her do this, and not just for him, but for her other friends who died, and um, over and over, it really opened my eyes to, oh, this is how we take care of each other. This is how you take care
Yeah.
of people. And so then, you know, the next year when I became a volunteer at the hospice nearby. It wasn't because it was a hospice or because I wanted to help people die. It was just I just wanted something to do after school. And while my
Wow.
other friends were working, they all had work permits, but I was only 13.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, I can volunteer. So I went up there and volunteered as a activities coordinator. So I was like making toast and helping people make like crafts and things and putting calendars up in rooms. And I would
Oh,
take these calendars into the room, and the patients there would say, well, could you just sit with me for a while? And I just sit with them and
that's all they
listen. And
want.
yeah, and they're like, you know, my family hasn't been here in a long time. And I'm just sitting with these
Oh, I'm gonna
people
cry.
at 13. And I'm like, And even then, it
Sorry.
wasn't like I was wise. I wasn't this wise person. I was just like, yeah, I can sit here, and I would just talk and play games and say,
That's
well,
all we
you know,
need.
okay. And in my head, I'm like, they just need
Yeah.
somebody to talk to. I'm here. It's fine, And
That made
but
their
looking back, it's
day.
like, oh, that was holding space and and creating space for people
Yep.
to really just to be at peace. And I was bringing peace to these people. And this is what my grandmother did for all of her friends. She made, she was known for her potato salad. Anytime someone got sick or died, she was making potato salad at the funeral,
Oh my
bringing
God.
it to their house. And it was just, I'd see people light up and I was like, huh,
Oh,
I want to be that. I want to do that for
yeah.
people and so, yeah, if it wasn't for her, I don't, who not, I'd be a writer, but
Yeah.
probably just a writer,
Maybe in a
you
different
know?
capacity or something, or
Yeah,
it wouldn't have
somewhere else.
kind of blended together as seamlessly.
Yeah.
Before I ask my next question, what was your grandmother's name?
Irene
Irene.
Irene
I
Jones.
love
Yep.
I love giving names to these people that we
Oh,
talk about. We
absolutely.
we
Same.
always refer to them as like, oh, my
Same.
grandma, my grandpa, whatever. I'm like, yeah, they had a name, they had an identity.
Yeah, the name.
They were a whole person.
Absolutely.
I love that. The other thing I wanted to ask you in terms of helping these people write their stories and just I guess just being a death doula in general, what has been some of the most impactful things that have come out of doing that work? So you can answer that more just holistically, just like death doula
Hmm.
as a whole,
Hmm.
or maybe specifically with the writing and just seeing what people have experienced in their lifetime. And
Yeah.
has that kind of, I would imagine, has, changed or shifted your perspective on life as
Yeah.
well? I don't see how it couldn't, but
Yeah.
like,
No. 100%. Like
yeah.
I've become. Um, I think I've always practiced empathy, but I've become
Mhm.
such a compassionate person. I think since really leaning into this work
Mhm.
and really wanting to know people's story, and which goes into like I think one of the biggest things that's come out of it is helping people, again, just helping people tell these stories. But you see there are people who really think that no one wants to know about them
Mm.
and no one wants to hear their story. And
It's
you
so
know
sad.
there are people I talk to who aren't even the people who come to my workshops.
Mm.
I have them write their story. Like I always start with like a three, tell me your 3 sentence life story. Tell me your life story in 3 sentences, right?
Whew.
And then from there we have something to build on, right? And so
Yeah.
they do it and they're like, well, I don't journal, I don't write, I
Mhm.
don't talk about myself because why would anyone want to hear this? Or it's not, and I'm like, no. And then we write them out and they're sitting there and they're, in tears and they're like, oh my gosh. And everyone is sitting there listening to them. And some of these are the most incredible stories you've ever heard. And I'm like, your life is worth telling.
Yeah.
Um, and so, putting that to the people who are dying, like I've seen the families have something. Like even when I did the obituary project, these are people who've been dead for some of them have been dead for over 20 years. And I write these obituaries and I talk to the family. I'm like, well, tell me about, I send them a questionnaire. Like, tell me about, um, what do you remember about them and what have other people said about them? And
Mhm.
then I put these into the story and I send back 1,500 words, 2,000 words on this person. And they're like, oh my God, this is, you know,
You embodied it.
I
Yeah.
have something. Yes, this is my dad. This is my
Oh.
friend. This is my so and so. And so it's really, and then now that they have this, it's like, oh, now I do have a story, or I can help other people do this too.
Mm.
So that's been the most impactful thing, and just helping families through the grief as well. It's we don't talk enough about grief, and we haven't talked enough about grief. So I love this podcast and all the grief workers out there who are making the conversation more or normalizing the conversations.
Mhm.
But there are many people out there who feel like, um, I've been grieving alone. I have to be the strong one in the family, like all those people. And so me coming in and saying, no, you don't. All of you can fall apart together. you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's fine. Like you don't have to. Who told you you have to be
There's
the
strength
strong
there
person?
too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and there's far more strength in being the weak person, you know,
Right.
the person falling apart, um,
Yeah.
and the person crying. Like people need to see that. Like people tell me all the time, like I couldn't be a death doula because I'm so emotional and I cry all the time. I would be crying all the time with clients. I'm like, there are some clients that would want you to fall apart too because it would make
Yeah.
sense for them to do it,
Yeah.
and so you could do this work too. But
Yeah.
it's all of that, and so mostly helping. Just I think all of that is just about people being seen and seen and heard,
Yep.
and and that's been the most impactful thing that's come out of this for me.
That's incredible. Just that holding space, like you were saying earlier.
Hmm.
I think people overthink that,
Oh yeah.
honestly. Like,
Hmm.
I don't really know how to hold space, or I'm uncomfortable or whatever. Actually, that's a great question. And I think a lot of people listening to this podcast are on the griever side, right? So they're
Yeah.
the one that's like looking for someone to hold space for them. But like, what would you say? Actually, it's funny. I recently had a client who's been through a lot of loss in the last year,
Hmm.
and they know someone that is kind of within their family going through some loss too. And she was saying to me, like, I don't know, kind of like, I don't know how to be there for them. I don't know how to hold space for them.
Okay.
I kind of like lifted the mirror up and I was like, but do you though, maybe? Because like, what has helped you? How would you have wanted space maybe held a little bit better for you? And I always say,
Hmm.
I always take into consideration like how people give and receive love. Like I love
Yep.
considering the love languages when I'm supporting people, and also like
Absolutely.
even out of romantic relationships, right? Just with friends, like what resonates with people. And we don't have to, like I said, overthink it and go too in depth on um what the person needs. It's just like if we know the person even kind of on the surface level or just well enough, we can probably figure out like what they need in a time of,
Hmm.
grief or discomfort. So
Yeah.
what would you say to, someone who's maybe like, I feel uncomfortable, or I don't know how to hold space for people, or,
Yeah.
even if it's someone here listening on the podcast that's like, I want someone to hold space for me, maybe how they could even like communicate that to their
No. Absolutely.
support system a little bit better. Cause I think that's the other thing I hear a lot of grievers struggle with too. They're like, I don't even know how
Yeah.
to like express what I need or want.
Like, what do I? Yeah. Absolutely. And I hear the same thing all the time from people. Like, well, what do I do?
Yeah.
And
Where do I start?
it's something as simple as my grandmother. She made potato salad, right?
Hmm.
That's not so simple. It was a very complicated recipe that no one in the family has been able to replicate yet.
I
I'm
kind of
working
love
on it.
that.
But sometimes it's literally just showing up and
Yep.
sitting outside in your car, outside of their house, if they want to come out and saying, "Hey, I'm outside. I'll be here for the next 4 hours if I have time. If you feel like coming outside." Um, I have a friend who, when he gets to a very dark place, for him, he likes memes. He might not even respond, and it might not even be funny at the moment, but it's something. And he's like,
Yeah.
just send me memes.
You just know it helps
You
him.
just
Yeah.
know that this is what helps. I'll send quotes to some friends.
Mm.
Sometimes it's just inviting them over and
Yeah.
saying, "Hey, I got some food for you," or "I'm cooking," or "I left," or "I'm sending over an Uber Eats because I know you haven't eaten in a few days."
Hmm.
And one thing, like I just made this post about the conversations we need to have as friends, right? And
Yeah.
part of that is asking when we're in happier moments and when we're in moments where it's like life is good, we're all laughing, we're all at brunch and having a good time, and no one's in a dark place, asking those questions then, asking when
Yep.
you get to that place where you feel that the world has turned its back on you, what do you need me to say, or what would you like me to do to
Oh,
pull you
yeah.
back, to kind of pull you back out of that. If it's nothing, and listening, because I think when we're happy we know what we would want,
We're clearer
and
on that.
we know
Yeah.
what would
Yeah.
have worked, and I've been asking friends, and they're like, oh well, just hit me up and say, hey, I'm gonna come kidnap you and we're gonna drive down the coast, or
Yeah.
hey, I found a new movie, or just send me a song, or whatever
Yeah.
that is. And yeah, and just being open to it, and also being open to, that may change become when you go to that darker place. But I'm going to
Yeah.
try anyway, and I'm going to come over and try that anyway. But it's not doing. You have to do something. If you
Yes.
love them, um, you know, just reaching out, because there are some people who say, I got to this place and no one even sent me a text,
Mm.
or I said I didn't need anything, and no, and that's what people gave me, nothing. And it's like, I do wish someone would have just
Just anything.
called, and I had a missed call on my, if it's a missed call,
Oh,
it's a missed call, but I saw it on my phone and I knew you checked them.
yeah.
And so when I come out of this, I knew you were there for me. Um, but sometimes it's hard to even, a lot of us, we don't know what to do, and we won't
Yeah.
even pick up the phone. We won't even send a text. We won't do anything. And I
Yep.
think we have to get out of that. It's like, I'm going to try to
Hmm.
pull you out, and to know, not to ask people. Sometimes you have to assume what these people need. Like,
Oh, yeah.
a lot of times, so many of us, we say, oh, I know my friends, like if
Yeah.
it's my friend or if it's my family, I know that. I know what they want. I know what they want. But when it comes to like this, it's
Yeah.
like we don't know any. It's like, suddenly we don't know. No, you know what you know. And
Yeah.
so when
Or
they
you can at
when they
least take an
get
educated guess.
we
My
can at
God.
least take a guess. And so when they get to that place and someone dies and we say, let me know if there's anything you need. They don't know what they need. Like they've never had a husband that died. They've never had a mom
Right.
who died. They
Yes.
don't know. So just assume and just go pick up a bucket of, whatever, some
Something.
nuggets. And I remember one of my brothers, his girlfriend died, and
Oh,
we were
no.
all very close. We were all very close, and he called me that morning. I was supposed to pick them up from the airport, and for a homecoming at our college, and I was supposed to pick him up at like 10. He called me at like 7 that morning, and I'm like, yeah, did you all miss the flight? And he's like, no, she died, and it was
Oh,
so out of the blue,
yeah.
and it was like, oh, and I was like, okay, I'll call. And she was in a sorority, and he was one
Mhm.
of my fraternity brothers, and we were all very close. So I said, okay, you handle that. I'll call all her sisters,
Yeah.
and I'll call you back. And so I called all her sisters, but and I'd never called him back. I just remember knocking on his door in St. Louis, and he was like, "What are you doing here?" And I was like, I don't know. I jumped on the flight, and
I
I have a
don't
bottle
know.
of right. I was like, I have a bottle of vodka, and I'm here for the week. So this is what we're gonna do.
You
And
use
that
me.
was it. And
I'm
he
at your
was like,
disposal.
all right, come on in. And through
Wow.
that week, it was, we welcomed her family to come in, and we all cleaned out her apartment, and we did these things together.
Mm.
But I didn't wait for, like, I didn't even think about asking him what he needed me to do. It was like, I'm just gonna
You're
jump
just
on
gonna jump
this,
into action.
and we're
Yeah.
just gonna make this happen, because and I think that's what we know people, we have to assume for them sometimes.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep.
And I think in situations like that, if they are feeling overwhelmed or if because I've been there, I actually almost had sort of an opposite reaction
Mm-hmm.
during a time where my dad had just died. And it was I had my cousin and my best friend with me, but it was actually kind of triggering. They were like, "Oh, let me help you throw this out or I can help you organize or whatever." And I didn't overreact to them, but I could feel internally I was like, I don't wanna be here, I need to get out, I don't want you
Yep.
guys touching anything. No.
Yep.
So, as a griever, it's like we can like you were saying, sometimes or we think we might know, and then we get in that
Mm-hmm.
situation, and we realize we don't know anything, or, it just doesn't look and feel like we ever anticipated it could have. It's exponentially worse, right? And then
Absolutely.
and then we're left to make decisions of what we wanna eat for dinner, and so I don't know. I don't
No
care.
idea.
It's not even on my radar, it's not on my list of priorities. But we do sometimes have those visceral reactions, and we can be like, "I can't tell you what feels good, but I can sure tell you what doesn't feel good."
But does not.
And is
Exactly.
that it's almost like a process of elimination, right? And,
Exactly.
so just being honest about that, and that's the other thing too that I think grief has definitely taught me. It's the power of stepping up and taking
Mm-hmm.
action for sure, at least via text. My God, we live in such a digital world now. It's
100%.
literally the least we can do. Um, it's definitely that, but it's also, what was the second thing? I totally lost my train of thought. But I think it's just having some self-awareness around
Mm-hmm.
that too, for both myself being painfully unaware of what other people might need and want, and getting really good at reading people. I think that is
Mm-hmm.
clearly a strength of yours. Um, and and at the very least, just offering it, seeing how it lands, and then like, no,
Yes,
okay, let's go from there, and being gentle with people too. And
absolutely.
just
I think a
so much
big part
grace
of
here.
that, like that I didn't touch on, is like, you know, kind of touched on it, but listen, like I think so
Mhm.
many of us think we are great listeners, and not a lot of us are,
It's
and
humbling. Yeah.
it's such a wild thing to me. And I realized that I remember my when I was an undergrad, and I took an effective listening course, and I signed up for it. I was a speech comm major, because I'm always so interested in how humans communicate.
Same.
And I was like, oh, I'll take this effective listening course, and because it'll be easy, of course, everyone listens. How hard can an effective listener? And got in there, and I mean, the first week I was like, oh my god, I don't listen to any.
I'm
Like,
humbled
no
right now.
one listens. No one listens. And now it drives me crazy to watch people not listen to, you know. And I think if we know that, then we say, okay, you know what, I'm going to listen.
Yeah.
And so even when these people, we know people by listening to them, not just when they're in the worst of their, worst of times, but throughout it all. So when the
Yeah.
worst time happens, it's like, oh, I know. It's like getting a Christmas gift. It's like, oh, all year I've been listening, whatever. I know what
Yeah.
I'm going to get you for Christmas. Okay, cool. So we should also know then, when they get to this hard time, what we could do for them when that happens.
Yeah.
So it's listening. I think we all have to. We don't have to take a course, but if we could all just be very intentional about
Life can be our course in a
the
lot
life,
of
life is
ways.
the course. Life is
Yeah.
the course, because we know how we feel when people don't listen to us.
Yeah.
And
It kind
so
of sucks, right? Like you're
it's
just
horrible. It's
everyone
awful.
we all have egos. We all want to be listened to, right?
Hmm.
But yeah, no, it really is. It's eye-opening who
Yeah.
clearly does listen and who does take notes and who does not. And
And who just
unfortunately,
not?
I think that's where like a majority of people really, or what I've noticed, and in terms of like, listening to people's love languages and really understanding the kind of support people need. I was talking about this with another guest
Hmm.
recently, that it's like people often show love or support in the way that it helps them, but they
Hmm.
don't really take into account, okay, who's in front of me right now? How do
Yes.
they show and receive love, and like
Yep.
what would resonate with them? Because like for me, for a lot of people, I'd get, gift baskets and things like that. And I was like, this is lovely, but I don't need any of this shit.
Like, I don't
I
need it.
I don't need an
I
extra
don't need it.
blanket. I have
Yeah.
5.
Yeah.
The blanket is not gonna make me feel better. A
Yeah.
cocktail might make me feel better,
There we
actually, in this
go. Right.
particular
There we
moment,
go. Yeah.
like,
Exactly.
when you
Exactly.
showed up with a bottle of vodka, I was like, "Yes, healthy coping
Feed me.
habits here, guys."
Feed me. Take me to a Michelin
Yes!
star restaurant. That's
Oh
what I
my
want.
god.
7 courses.
Yeah, right?
Yep.
So, taking that into account. So, yeah, I mean, it sounds so cliché, but they're so underrated, these things. Good listening, empathy,
Mm-hmm.
compassion, right? Like just showing up, like
Yes.
all of those things somehow are easier said than done. So it's
No,
like,
100%.
can
Yeah.
we can we not like can we as a society, as a human race, like work on that a little bit? I know.
We exist, so we know it's possible.
Yeah,
Like, we
yeah,
know we're gonna get there, and we're
yeah.
having these
Slowly but
conversations
surely.
now, and
Yeah.
this is the start, because
People will get
these
the message.
conversations weren't happening 20 years ago.
Right. Yeah. So there's
So
absolutely, that's so true. There has been
yeah.
progress made. I As we start to wrap up, I want to talk about your book. You briefly mentioned it, but it's called
Okay.
Never Can Say Goodbye, correct?
Correct. Correct.
Yes. Can you talk to us a little bit about that book? You're a
Yep.
writer, so it's not shocking you're writing a book. But where did that specifically come from? What is it about? What can people expect? And
Yeah. No.
all the good things.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's actually shocking to me that I'm writing this book. I so it started. I wrote an article
Hmm.
in LA Times a couple years ago now, and my agent, her name's Lane Clark. So she found the article, and she hit me up on maybe LinkedIn, I think,
Uh-huh.
and she's like, hey, would you ever been interested in writing a book about this? And I'm like, yeah, it sounds good. Okay,
Why
all
not?
right, whatever. And she's like, send me a couple chapters. Let we worked on it. She sent it off. Harper One immediately was like, we want it. What do we have to do to get it?
That's a big
And
deal.
I was like, oh, this is this is real. Okay. All right. And so sent it to the end,
Right.
and we've just been building it up, have an amazing editor over there, Angela, and it's been about a year, a year since starting, a little
Okay,
over
I
a
was
year actually, since
wondering.
starting
Yeah.
the writing.
Okay.
But it's all about the work that I've done as a death doula, the situations I found myself in, like what I learned, the impact that the clients had on me, and
Mhm.
how we've all done this work. In the part of our conversation, me and you, talking about how we've probably held space and not known it, or how to hold
Yeah.
space, and all of these things, and how that's happened. Like there was a time I showed up at a funeral as not as a death doula, but as a photographer, because the woman hired me to take pictures for her cousin.
Oh my God.
But it turned into me helping someone there who was heavily grieving.
Mhm.
And it's like, this is how we've all done this work. Like, I'm not the only one who's done that. We've been at funerals and we sat with someone in the car who was crying because, for whatever reason. Um,
Yeah.
and it talks about what grief looks like for some people. It talks about, a guy who walks up to me and at a club and says, I don't think I've grieved the death of my father yet. And through conversation, it's like, I think you have. It just didn't look the
Mm.
way you thought it was going to look.
Yeah,
And
well
so it
said.
talks about the many different ways we grief is expressed. But yeah, it's about all of that. Like the clients I've had, the work I've done, the people who've influenced it. Um, and yeah, I'm really excited about it. I think it'll be out early 26.
I was wondering.
Um,
Okay, good.
yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm hoping for the best.
So exciting. Oh, I have
Yeah.
no idea. I have no doubt it's gonna blow up. This is like our conversation today is like a precursor to this book. We
Yeah,
literally,
that's
I feel like we hit on everything.
yeah. Oh,
Little
absolutely,
teaser for everyone
absolutely,
today. I
absolutely.
love that so much. Well, I can't wait to read it. I really, because I mean, I've already gotten so much from you just in our conversation
Hmm.
today, but um, just to dive deeper into that. And I think one of the biggest, dare I say, gifts that I think grief and the grieving experience and all of that can give us with some time when we're open to it. I always feel like
Hmm.
I need to preface this depending on where people are in the grieving experience listening to this particular episode of this podcast. We're just talking to a wide range of people here.
Yeah.
Um, but those perspective shifts and those little glimmers of joy and those the being open to listening to other people and their
Yes.
experiences and their perspectives on life and all of the things really can I'm gonna say influence, and I always say, like, I always like to preface that by saying, like, we can always like take what works for us and leave the rest or whatever. But I
Hmm.
think that's another thing that, in addition to everything we've talked about today, that grief can give us, right? The empathy, the compassion, the good, better. So I'm not gonna say great, better listening
Yeah.
skills, hopefully, is that expansion of our mind and of what's possible, perhaps even spirituality. Like I
Yeah.
definitely have I'm starting to have a different relationship with my spirituality than I ever did. And it
Absolutely.
was, definitely influenced by my mom, but it's really funny now that she's gone. It's really coming up for me more now. When she was here, I was like, yeah, okay, mom, like you're just,
Yeah. Yeah. As we do.
okay, crazy lady. Like, I'm just
Yeah.
like, oh, damn, she was onto
That's it. Yep.
something.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and sometimes it's so frustrating too, because I understand it. Like sometimes it does take a loved one dying or some other,
Hmm.
maybe more secondary loss, quote unquote,
Hmm.
to get us to realize these things, to wake us up. But it can wake us up. And I think
Hmm.
that's where I just am bringing kind of back to your earlier points of when we were first talking and like, you know, kind of having those tough conversations with ourselves and asking
Yeah.
ourselves like, if this were my last day, what would I do differently? Those
Yeah.
cliche
Yeah.
questions that
Yeah.
we all say to like ask
Absolutely.
or whatever, but like real talk, putting ourselves in those shoes of,
Hmm.
of a loved one who is, not doing well or whatever. It's
Yeah.
like it's like we don't want to do that or we don't do that, like I think in a lot of
Yeah.
cases you probably witness this until it's too late. And I don't say that
Oh,
to like
too
fearmonger
often. No, no, too
here,
often.
but
Too
like
often. Yeah.
let's call a spade a spade. Like
Hmm.
so it's just such a beautiful message that you put out into the world in so many
Thank
different
you.
ways and so many different avenues. One of the last questions I have for you today is I always like to kind of have my guests from their perspective just share a
Hmm.
little bit of wisdom, which you've already shared a lot of today. But what would you say to someone right now who is struggling but looking to embrace what is next for them after going through a loss, or maybe they're in the midst of it all right now, whether it's,
Hmm.
there's some anticipatory grief going on and someone is, maybe struggling with an illness and, death is on the radar.
Hmm.
Um Wherever they're at and they're just struggling today with their
Yeah.
grief. It's a big question, but what would you say to that person? It could be
Yeah.
something that has helped you,
Oh, absolutely.
perspective shift,
I'd say,
whatever.
I think it's really, I'd say it's really important to lean into the community part of it. I think
Yeah.
if we're gonna get through hard times in our life, we
Mhm.
have to have the community. And there, I completely understand that there are people who feel they have no one.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that it's not too late to start building to start building that out. Sometimes it looks like signing up for that grief group online that we think may not be able to help us. It's like
Yeah.
this might not be. This is probably trash. It's everyone in there is just so sad. I don't want to be
Yeah.
sadder. It's like that's community though, and
Yeah.
that's what's always gotten us through, and that's what's gonna get us through.
Mhm.
Even if it's just one other person,
Yeah.
if it's it doesn't have to look like therapy. It could just look like
Right.
meeting someone new. I just did a post on my Substack about um, how we can repurpose these dating apps to be to just change our profile to say, hey, I'm
Yes.
grieving the death of my mom. Looking for others who may be grieving too. I'd love to meet you for coffee. See
I
who
saw your
swipes right.
post about that. I was
Yeah.
like, "That's clever and
Yeah,
so brilliant.
yeah.
I'm here for it."
I think that's what like. I've repurposed them during travel. I'm like, oh, of course these could work for grief too. And
Yeah.
so just saying, just whatever you can do. There's so many companies and so many apps now. A friend of mine just did a thing the other day where she signed up and this company sends you on a out to dinner with four strangers, and you all just meet at this restaurant and you all
Ooh.
sit at the table. And I was like, that's genius. I wish I
Whoa.
would have thought of that.
That's
And
interesting.
yeah, and it's like that's community. Maybe you just
Yeah.
need a distraction. If you need a distraction and community,
Yep.
try that. Um, but you have to find your people, however you can do it,
Yeah.
and really just lean on them to say, listen, I'm not okay.
Mhm.
And,
Mhm.
or we can all just be not okay together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that so much. I was talking to someone recently and they were saying even maybe from like a like human nature level, like we are not meant
Hmm.
to grieve alone.
No, not at
Yeah.
all.
Can
I
you
don't think
elaborate
we've
on that?
ever
I think
supposed
that's
to do it.
that's so true.
Yeah. It's like, why? It's too hard. Like that's too
Yes.
hard to be done alone. And then you emerge one day and full beer. It's like, where have you been? It's like and I think we need witnesses just
Yes.
in life, period. But we're not supposed to do any of this alone, I think. And it
Yeah,
doesn't have to
agreed.
be a partner. It could be
Mhm.
whoever that person is, a complete stranger who you've become friend, whatever that is. But
Yeah.
yeah, find it.
I love that so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so true. I am just so inspired by all the work that you do.
Yeah,
And
thanks.
really where I just wanted to end this too was like, I know and I was kind of when I was like reading about you and just
Hmm.
like kind of where your mind is at and that, storytelling is because there's like a whole nother part of this topic we haven't even really talked about and like like child's grief and
Hmm.
because again with some of the shows that you've written for too or for like
Yeah.
a younger audience and just but whether it's child grief or adult grief or whatever, just facing these difficult transitions, whatever they are, and how that storytelling is such a critical component of the connection we've been talking about, and
Yeah.
feeling safe to be held, have that space held for us, and that sense of belonging. Um, is there any just last thing you would say to somebody in terms of how they could maybe use writing to their advantage, or how you've seen
Mhm.
writing or that storytelling component be really impactful for people? Because I often recommend journaling. Like, I've created my
Mhm.
own journal because I believe in it so much. So, but I think, journaling, people are just like, okay, journaling,
Like
self-care,
whatever. Yeah.
buzzwords,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
have you seen anything helpful in that regard, or just like, again, just a little encouragement or empowerment for people to utilize storytelling in a way that works for them?
No, absolutely. I'm going to back you up on the journaling. Yes, everyone listening to this should journal, but also, yeah, I think there's so many ways to be a storyteller.
Mhm.
If you just want to get the story out there, sometimes it's just putting notes in your phone.
Yeah.
Everyone has like the notes app.
Yep.
I
I
have
say that too.
literally, I think the last time I checked, there was like 3,500 and
Yeah.
something in there.
Yeah.
I'll go in there anytime, type something in there. I have a bunch of receipts where I'll just write like a quick note, like, "Oh, remember this." But
Right.
I love um, telling people to write letters. I think
Mhm.
writing letters. It doesn't have to be a journal that you have to think.
Right,
Someone's
right.
going to look back on and judge me or whatever if they ever find my journal. You don't have to think
Yeah.
about that. Just write someone you love a letter. If they're dead.
Yep.
I've encouraged people to write letters to people who've died, and to really get those things out. Whatever you can do to get it out, and writing really helps with that. It's so many times we feel so blocked and locked up, and
Mhm.
it's like I just feel stuck, and it's like, yeah, because there's so much in there that needs to come out.
Yeah.
It's like a clogged drain. Like, you have to unclog yourself, and
Yeah.
writing really gets that out. Or just or not even a voice note. Let me
Yeah.
just put this out there.
I
Let me
say
do
that
this.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, like I take my phone in the shower, not in the water, but I'll have it in the
Yeah.
bathroom, because that's when the great thoughts come. And I'm
Yeah.
like, all right, hey, I call on Siri or Alexa or whoever, and I'm
Yeah.
like, record this message or take this
Yeah.
note, and it's like, all right, and I have that. So
That's smart.
however you need to get it out, it has to come out. It really
Yes.
has to come out.
Yep.
Yeah.
Poof. Well said. Yeah, because I think between that and then I have clients and I know grievers who don't do that. They don't
Mm-hmm.
have the community. They don't have, I'm like, where is all of that going? I'm
Where's
like,
it
are you
going?
walking it all? Are you walking it off? If nothing else, my God.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and that is so, it can get us so misaligned with like the mind body connection. And
Ugh,
it's, oh man, I don't know. I don't have to tell you
yes.
how grief can build up and show
Yeah.
itself.
Yep.
Because
And
it
it
will.
manifests, and people are walking around like, oh, I've had a headache for a whole week, or my back hurts, or this. It's
And
like,
we're
yeah,
shocked by
because it has to get out. It
that.
has to get out. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So writing obviously very cathartic.
Yeah.
Art and whatever for. I mean, just, good Lord, something like
Something. Something.
cooking, cooking
Get the
potato
journal.
salad.
Cooking
Like
potato salad. Yes.
beautiful for a full circle moment. I love that. Darnell, this has been an absolute pleasure.
Oh,
You're
absolutely.
just
Thank you so much.
amazing and just a breath of knowledge and wisdom and light and all of the things. If
Thank
people want to connect with you, get on your Substack, follow
you.
you, work with you in some capacity, learn more,
Yeah.
where can they find you?
Yeah, so I'm Darnell Lamont Walker on just about everything. Hello Darnell on Substack and Instagram, and darnellwalker.com. So, but you could just type my name in and it'll pop Darnell Lamont Walker, because there are a lot of Darnell Walker. It's like a football player. So I had to start using my middle name. But Darnell Lamont Walker,
I love it.
I can be found everywhere.
You're out there. Great. This will all be in the show notes as well. But thank you so much for your time today. Truly,
Thank
this
you.
has been such I always say these are fun conversations, even though they're
Yeah.
around death and loss. Go
Oh,
figure.
it's the
But
best conversations.
I
Yes.
know it's cathartic. I'm telling you, talk it
Hmm.
out. Yeah. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you very much.
I am sending you a huge thank you for tuning into today's episode, my friend. I'm so grateful you're here and for the steps you are taking to heal your heart, open your mind, fulfill your soul, learn, grow, and evolve, and move through this crazy thing called life in big, beautiful, impactful ways. Visit lossesbecomegains.com for my blog, more coping tools, ways to work with me, and so much more. And be sure you're following along on Instagram and Facebook at Losses Become Gains, and on Instagram and TikTok at Life with Grief Podcast. I love seeing new faces, meeting new people, hearing your stories, and supporting you however I can. Be sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and share this episode or this podcast with someone who could use it too. And remember to always keep asking yourself, how will I turn my losses into gains today? I'll catch you in the next episode.